and welcome to the Golden Wheel Tavern. It's so good to see you all again. It's so good to have you here. We appreciate each and every single one of you. However you show up, whether it's through YouTube or through the podcatcher of your choice or through Patreon, we appreciate that you're here. So, we might as well jump right into it today, because we don't have a brew. Certain circumstances came up, brewing process went kind of wrong. We feel like this isn't our best, and therefore, we're not giving it to you. Sorry.
I'm not.
The bartender is not remorseful at all.
I'm not remorseful if the only other option was to give you a subpar drink.
That's fair. Now, since we're skipping the brew, we're going to jump right into the Tales from the Tavern's tables, which is about switching things up.
Our Sunday group.
Our Sunday Monster of the Week group.
Our Monster of the Week group.
The only non-D&D group we have.
Yes, they've been dealing with some troubles, and not just scheduling troubles, but their characters have been dealing with the planes of reality not being so stable. Not as stable as they would like, not as stable as anyone would like, really.
I like my planes of reality to be extremely stable. Any perturbations in the planes of reality tend to give me indigestion.
They just make me burp.
So they also give you indigestion.
No, I only get the burping. It just gives me gas.
Oh, I get the rest of it then. It's split between us.
Yeah. They have already been dealing with this for at least one session. Hard to quite remember with such long intervals between sessions.
If I had my notes, I could give you exact details.
But with walking into rooms and suddenly, the rooms are different than what they're supposed to be and they think they're a person in a different reality and that sort of thing. So, they got to go on vacation.
Vacation!
Foundation said, "We love you, get out of here."
We went to the white sandy beaches.
White sand beaches of Greece, baby! And it was lovely. They saw the beach. They went to sleep in their hotel.
Yep. They
woke up in a tavern.
What?
They woke up in a tavern.
That's incongruous with
adventuring gear.
Not in adventuring.
Not gear, but clothing.
Yeah.
Venturing clothing.
Fantasy medieval clothing. Except for my character, who woke up in their normal clothing.
Because that's what he wears.
Just fantasy medieval clothing. Matthew Derringer is always dressed like he's going to a Ren Fair.
He's just a fucking nerd.
He's dressed like he's always going to a Ren Fair, so his clothes unchanged. Everybody else now looks like they're going to a Ren Fair.
They go down out of their rooms in the tavern to be met with cheers and applause. Thank you for saving us the other day.
Which we don't remember because we just arrived at these white sand beaches. And we're being told we saved the town.
There's a nice little petting zoo outside for them.
Filled with familiars.
Yes, the animals are very familiar to them.
No, as in I cast Detect Magic and saw that they were familiars from the spell Find Familiar, but nobody is admitting that they're familiars, and in fact, it seems very much using an insight check, which if you know Monster of the Week should raise a flag, that they're not lying.
Yeah, whenever they would have to make their first check, I handed them a new character sheet, having ported their characters from Monster of the Week over to 5th edition.
5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, meaning we no longer have a non-Dungeons & Dragons group.
We'll have a non-Dungeons & Dragons group in approximately 6 months. I think that's how long it's going to take for us to get 2 more sessions in.
Yeah.
That's optimistic of me.
High hopes. High hopes
over here.
But eventually, we will have a non-Dungeons & Dragons group again. But right now, we don't, because the DM has decided to completely switch things up.
I thought it'd be interesting. I thought it'd be fun. Oh, also, your dice got cursed that session.
Oh, yeah! Did it?
Yeah, they felt weird.
Oh, right. They felt
Something
weird.
was off.
It was never explicitly said that they were cursed, but something was weird about them.
I mean, they're not explicitly cursed. But they're wrong.
They're wrong.
The dice are wrong.
The dice, they're bad.
Bad dice.
Bad dice.
But you're a divination wizard now.
Yes.
Matthew's a divination wizard.
Our essentially apostle got changed into, who could have guessed, a cleric?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
High enough level spells has to be a cleric, definitely not a paladin.
Oh.
So a cleric, our weird birdman got changed into a Path of the Beast barbarian.
With Aarakocra as the race?
Not Kenku?
Oh, right, you put Kenku.
I put Kenku.
I kept saying Aarakocra, he put Kenku.
Because he can't fly.
He got a bird race. Nothing about his physical appearance has changed.
Yes.
He's still a part bird man. It just seemed more fitting to give him a bird race, unlike the other ones.
Yes, which are all human.
Mm-hmm.
And then the face of our Monster of the Week party, of course, got turned into a bard.
Warlock.
Warlock? Oh yeah, they're a warlock.
Warlock, Pact of the Fiend.
I knew they were a charisma caster, and I just assumed bard.
Yeah, Warlock, Pact of the Fiend, because they're the monster fucker class in Monster of the Week.
The monster lover class.
The monster fucker class. And they have like a little dragon tattoo monster that's on them and bound to them. So I was like, yeah, that's your patron now.
Meaning they're familiar because their Pact of the Chain is a pseudo-dragon.
Yes. So that's super fun.
Yeah. So we really went off and even changed systems, which some groups would absolutely hate that beyond all measure.
Mm-hmm.
Our group was caught off guard. But I think it's partly because I was so on board with it. The rest of the group was like, yeah,
I knew it would be fine because one of the people, not naming names, the one who likes to complain the most, a few sessions back was like, when are we going to play 5th edition again? So I was like, I knew I could get away with it.
Yeah. And I'm always down to do something funky. Like if at one point in this Monster of the Week campaign we switched to Honey Heist for
honestly,
something.
I'm thinking it might be fun to do a couple quick mysteries for different, you get thrown into Definitely Wizards, Girl by Moonlight. No, I think it'd be fun to do a little bit of TTRPG hopping. Not an excessive amount.
Yeah. I think that is also a way to avoid burnout.
Yeah.
And could be really fun depending on your group. How quickly your group, especially if you have a group that can either quickly pick up on new systems, which weirdly enough, I think, so the thing is you have me and you have Seth, who I think can both pick up on new systems really quickly, and then the other two are very willing to learn.
They still don't really know how to play Monster of the Week.
They still don't know how to play D&D 5e.
So it's fine to jump between systems because they're going to ask the same amount of questions as they normally would.
Yeah, they hit their max. We both hit our maximum, or me and Seth hit competency really early, and the other two hit their maximum really early. So it's all good.
Yeah. Still teaching one what a D20 is.
Still sometimes. Is this which one's the D10? No, that's the D8. No, that's the D12. No, that's the percentile.
Oh.
No, that's a D20. No, that's the D12 again. It's this one. Oh, okay. 7. No, you need to roll it 3 times. Oh.
You guys did have a fight, though.
We had a fight. We know against what type of monster.
Yes. It's been kind of interesting, right? Because it's not going to be actual D&D where a monster comes up and it's not necessarily true that your party knows what the fuck they're going up against.
Yeah.
Because typically when you're adventuring, you're just kind of going out, running into shit.
Yeah.
Matthew Derringer's a huge fucking nerd who's run a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons.
Matthew Derringer is a D&D nerd, which you have isekai'd into a D&D world.
Yeah. So he gets this special opportunity to make intelligence checks to see if he can figure out what monster is in front of him.
Yeah.
If it's something that he would have known enough about.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting.
Yeah. And it gives me a little bit of leeway to the fact that I have a lot of D&D knowledge.
Yeah.
I can still utilize some of that D&D knowledge and still be in character.
Yeah, I feel like it does give you a little bit of a break, because typically when you're in a 5th edition setting, you have to be like, okay, I have all this knowledge, my character doesn't, so I have to figure out, is this something my character would actually do, or am I metagaming? And with this, it kind of gives you a little bit more flexibility. Yeah.
But that's
besides
all just
the
to
point.
say.
They fought something.
We fought something.
You fought a revenant.
A revenant.
A revenant.
Which definitely set the tone for this mystery, because that means there's a threat that's going to keep coming after us over and over. Mm-hmm. Because it chases you down for an entire year.
Yes.
Coming back every day. Mm-hmm. Possessing a new body every 24 hours if you kill it.
It takes 24 hours for it to possess a new body.
Yeah.
So you get 24 hours between when it started, when it attacked you, and from when you killed it. You have 24 hours of knowing you'll be safe.
Knowing you'll be safe, and then you have a little bit of leeway after that, because it has to go from whatever body it possessed to chasing you down. Right?
Yeah.
So, there is the thing of, like, if you go on a long, it's like, you killed it, it's gonna spawn in the nearest cemetery, and you immediately get on a cargo ship and, like, sail elsewhere. You're safe for it, probably for the year, because it's going to take a while for that thing to walk under the ocean to the other side of the ocean.
It can run.
It can run.
It's going to take a while, but it can run.
Yeah. In theory, it does just, like, sprint every turn because it can't get exhaustion, and it does need to eat or breathe.
Yeah. But also, in theory, if it's going through the ocean, on the bottom of the ocean, something's going to eat it.
It does have 18 charisma, so it probably actually just, like, gets aboard a different ship.
Yeah, it would have to board a ship, because otherwise, like, that 18 charisma isn't gonna help when you have a fucking sea monster on your ass.
I'm wondering if it... So, the thing is then if it gets killed, does it just, like, possess a body where you're going? I'd have to read the Revenant rules to remember. Like, does it just possess the nearest body to where it's most recently killed?
Don't think it says for sure.
Because if it does, then it just, like, possesses the next, like person who died at sea. And eventually, like, you land on the shore and you just see, like, a waterlogged body crawling up from the ocean. Kind of terrifying.
When the Revenant's body is destroyed, its soul lingers. After 24 hours, the soul inhabits and animates another humanoid corpse on the same plane of existence and regains all its hit points.
So it just picks a body.
Yeah.
And the thing is the spirit knows exactly where you are at all times.
So it's probably just gonna choose the nearest body to you.
Yeah, it's probably just constantly picking the nearest body to you. Maybe if there's, like... Because it has intelligence 13, so it could pick a smarter body. Or, like, it could intelligently pick a better body for hunting you down.
Yes.
Like, if there's a graveyard, it's not going to pick the body of little Timmy, the leprous child who lost his left leg. It's going to pick Big Tom.
I don't know. It might pick little Timmy and really put that 18 charisma to work.
It might. Otherwise, it might pick Big Tom.
Yeah.
Big Tom, who was buried in all his battle armor.
Yeah. So they have some fun things ahead. It was a combat.
It was a combat.
Sure.
I was a 5th level wizard, so I cast Fireball.
Yes. And you cast Fireball.
And I cast Fireball.
And you got knocked down.
And I got knocked down.
And did not get back up again until the fight was over.
Until the fight was over. Because Revenants hit really hard against those they're tracking, and I'm a wizard. And the fight started with it. We were sleeping, and it came in targeting me, and me alone, in my own room. So, a wizard versus a melee fighter in an enclosed space is a bad matchup for the wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's all to say. We switched up systems, we had a fun encounter, and I'm excited for the future, and sometimes doing big switch-ups can be very interesting.
Sorry, I just want to talk about my favorite part of the session really quick.
Yeah.
After the fight encounter was over, and Matthew was explaining a Revenant to the other people in the group, Verity's first response was, so people aren't going to like us anymore? Are people going to hate us now?
Uh-huh.
Which I loved, and she got inspiration for that because her character is very obsessed with, like, vanity and wanting to be the most important, most liked person in the room.
Because I mentioned that it has an 18 in charisma, so it very well might try to influence people against us.
Mm-hmm.
And the one character who cares about their appearance, like their social appearance, was always like, are they gonna hate us now?
Yeah.
So, that was very, very funny.
Yes.
But... that's all to say, we switched things up and had a wonderful time. Sometimes switching things up, depending on your group, can really give a refreshing change of pace and can create some interesting dynamics.
Yeah.
But it's time to move on to the Tavern's Talking topic, which is in fact brought to us by a question on one of the TikToks we posted. Because now... we occasionally post TikToks.
Hell yeah, we do. And by we, I mean you.
At the Tavern Keeps Guide, usually they're just responses to, like, advice videos or whatnot.
Yes.
One of them was like an idea for how to do prepared spell casting. But this person was asking, how do you run an encounter?
Yes.
Which I feel like it's important to cover the basics, and then some of the optional rules and ideas that they don't really cover that much in the, books. So, the basics of an encounter for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Step 1, determine who's surprised. Boom, you're not surprised. So,
I have alert.
you have alert, so you can't be surprised. So this is just if somebody is sneaking or trying to get the jump on somebody else, it's stealth using their dexterity versus the other person's perception using their wisdom. If the stealth person passes, the wisdom person is surprised. An important note that a lot of people make this mistake or make this comparison because it's older editions. There is no such thing as a surprise round. There is no special round just for, surprise. Surprised is just a condition. And in fact, it's like a special condition, because it doesn't actually show up in the conditions segment. But what surprised is essentially you skip your first turn, if you are surprised. Then you are no longer surprised after you skip your first turn. So, surprised is a status, doesn't apply to everyone every time, because in your example, you have alert. So if the party got surprised and you were in it, you would not be surprised. The rest of the party would. You can start firing back on these goblins that jumped out from the bush. The rest of your party gets bushwhacked. Yeah. So, quick note there. There's no such thing as a surprise round. It's just a condition. Then you determine initiative. Everybody rolls a dexterity check, and the DM makes the same check for each group of the same monster. This is a specific note. For example, if the party goes up against 3 goblins and a bugbear, all the players will roll their initiative, and then the DM will roll for the bugbear, and once for all 3 goblins. If you have a bunch of monsters that are the same type, you just roll 1 initiative for all of them. You just group them together. It keeps initiative smaller, it keeps initiative cleaner, especially if you have a large group. You don't want to be rolling 5 initiatives. Just roll 1 initiative for all 5 goblins. That is actually in the rules. Then, of course, higher number goes first, but there is an important note. This is a check. It is a dexterity check. It is not a skill, but it is a check. So Bard, Jack of all trades, applies to initiative. So you add half your proficiency bonus, rounded down, or I think it's rounded down, to your initiative if you are a Bard. That is a small note that a lot of people miss. But Jack of all trades applies because initiative is a dexterity check. I'm so much of an nerd, I went to D&D Sage Advice. There is a tweet from Jeremy Crawford, lead designer of 5e, specifically stating Jack of all trades can apply to initiative since that roll is a dexterity check. And if there is a tie between players, the players decide, that is the official rule. If there is a tie between either the players and the monsters, or just among the monsters, the DM decides. Or the DM can have the tied combatants roll a d20, higher wins, and goes earlier in the initiative. But there is a common house rule that I recommend using, just because it settles it quickly, which is the higher dex goes first.
Yeah.
So if I roll and I get a 14, and you roll and you get a 14, but my dex is 13 and yours is 9, I go first.
I would like to mention, with initiative, when you're writing it down, make sure to write down what the number rolled was. Especially if you have other people who might be joining in later rounds. It's important. Like in our combat this last Sunday,
yes,
where people were coming in, and someone rolled an initiative that tied with the monster.
Yeah.
Make sure you have those numbers if you know that there are going to be other people joining a round or 2 late.
Yeah, so keep an initiative track, including the original numbers rolled.
Yeah.
Just in case you have any adds at some point. So, that is rolling initiative, and then you get into the meat and potatoes of combat. The rounds and turns. So a round is 6 seconds, and that is the time from the start of the first character's turn in the initiative to the end of the last character's turn in the initiative. And I don't mean player character, I mean even the enemy. So if an enemy goes first, the start of their turn, to the last person to go. That is an entire round, and that is 6 seconds.
Yeah, from the start of the first person's turn until it would be time for them to start their next turn.
Yep. So, loops all the way around. That is 6 seconds. That does need to be kept track of for things like spell durations, if you have a 1 minute spell duration, although typically combats last at most 4 to 5 rounds.
Yeah. But you never know, so I'll try to keep like our little round tracker. I think it is like really important to like emphasize like when you're doing the round, it's gonna feel like it's taking forever.
Yeah.
But in game, it is only 6 seconds. The only reason why I bring this up is because Critical Role, as you know, they have a show called Vox Machina.
Yeah.
When that was first announced, there were people saying that it was going to be absolute trash because combat always takes so long when they do the playtests, or not they playtest, when they do their play.
Yeah.
How are they going to do, like, that's going to be bad if it's just one person doing, no, all of this stuff is kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah, the idea is it's all happening, like, as your fighter is running in, your wizard is casting a spell, they maybe throw a word or, like, hand gesture or something to each other. Like, the PHP even says, like, simple phrase or, like, a gesture on your turn to communicate. Like, you aren't really talking, it is 6 seconds, combat is going, people are charging against each other, and combat ends quickly because despite the fact that you have 100 and some hit points, combat in D&D is, if you were to play it in real time, quick, violent, and brutish. Like, if you think about it, like, you slaughter 20 goblins in, like, less than a minute, and they, like, stick you with, like, 4 different arrows and, like, a pike.
Yeah. I feel like the duration of combat is also probably these days going to kind of be blown out of proportion by Baldur's Gate 3.
Yes.
Because, I mean, they follow the initiative system. It's not like a regular video game where it's just you and your crew charging in and hitting shit.
Yeah. It's not an action RPG. It is a CRPG.
Yeah. So, don't think like Baldur's Gate 3. Think combat happens more like in...
like Dark Souls or like... Skyrim or Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, where you're moving around. Like, sure, every time you attack in, like, Skyrim, that is you taking your turn. And every time the enemy attacks back, that is them taking their turn. But just because it's turn-based, it takes a really long time.
Yeah.
And then once the last person's turn is done, the round is finished, and it starts from the top again. And then you go through each round over and over.
Mm-hmm.
There are 10 rounds in a minute, basic math, 6 seconds in a round, 10 rounds to a minute. So if you have a spell that lasts for 1 minute, that is going to be 10 rounds worth of having that effect active.
Mm-hmm.
When a character's initiative is up, they begin their turn. So you start with the highest initiative, that person goes first, then the next person, then the next person. And on your turn, you have an action, bonus action, move, and reaction. We're not going to go into too much details on these. Read your PHB. I do want to make a note.
I can send you that link to that combat flowchart, and then you can post the link in the description so people can look through it. It's not something we made. It's a resource we found online. It's a free resource we found online. Someone made a flowchart of, like, what goes through combat. I've printed it out for new players. It seems to help a little bit, clear things up, and help them kind of keep track of combat as it's going.
So, we'll put a link to that in the chat, or not in the chat, in the description. I don't know why I said chat.
You've been playing too much Baldur's Gate 3 with our Sunday group.
I guess. But you have your action, your bonus action, your move, and your reaction. Read your PHB. It'll be really helpful. Try to get some experience under your belt. You won't understand the fullness of combat of D&D unless you've played it, or, you know, at least listen to a decent actual play. There's a difference between actual play, which I'm putting quotation marks around, and actual play, which is like you have the quote-unquote actual plays, which are like, yeah, this is the rule book, set it aside, make stuff up as you go along.
That's Adventure Zone.
Adventure Zone. They're more about the fun than the actual, like, rule stuff. And then you have following the rules in a way that is fun, but you can learn from it. But I'm not here to recommend actual play podcasts right now. Just read your PHB. I do want to make a note that there is no interaction action. You hear a lot of people talk about, oh, you've used your interaction. what that is referring to is as part of your movement or your action, you can like draw your weapon or you can pick an item up off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only do that like once. If you want to do multiple like small movements, that will end up using your action.
Yeah, lots of people call the interaction action your free action.
Yeah. It's not an official thing. It is something you can do. And that's why dual wielder is important, because it lets you draw 2 weapons or stash 2 weapons. Yeah, with your interaction or your free action. But there's actually no technical term for what it is. Know your basic actions, which are attack, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, ready, search, and use an object. Attack, attack. Dash, move faster. Disengage, move away without getting hit. Dodge, try to avoid getting hit. Help someone hit. Hide, hide. Ready is you use your action to take an action and say, I'm gonna Kamehameha wave once Piccolo has lined up Raditz for me to blast him.
I'm not gonna comment on that.
And then once that criteria is met, you use your reaction to do the action you've selected. I'm picturing a specific mini game in a like Dragon Ball fighting game where you're either playing as Piccolo or I want to say Goku, and you're either charging up the beam or like trying to keep the guy you've got lined up so that you can successfully kill him. Yeah. Anyways. Search. So, this is one that a lot of DMs don't pay attention to. Technically, if you are making a perception or investigation check in combat, that is your action. Dragons, I believe, ancient gold dragons at least, get a legendary action to be able to make a perception check. But a lot of DMs are just like, yeah, make a perception check. And then you can also attack and use your bonus action this turn. So that is one a lot of DMs just discard it. So if you are a DM, I don't know, play what's right for you.
Whatever works best for your table.
The rulebook's malleable. I like the rulebook. You can tear it apart if you want. Just not mine.
I know, I've asked.
The last one, use an object. We've already discussed interaction, but like if you're trying to pick a lock or if you're trying to bust down a locked door, or I think one of them is like turn the winch to lower a drawbridge, that's not going to be just an interaction.
Yeah.
That's going to be actually taking your action to do something. So any significant use of an object is going to take your action. Most magic items are going to take your action. Just that simple. Movement, I want to make a quick note on this. Movement speed tells you the max you can move with that method, and you can't move further than your highest speed number. So if you have walk 30, fly 40, you can fly 20 feet, walk 10 more feet, and then fly another 10 feet. Because essentially movement drains from all of your movement option numbers, and then if all of them are 0, you're out of movement. So if you move 10 feet by flying, and you have 40 fly, 30 normal, you then have 20 normal or 30 fly left after flying 10. So that is how multiple movement speeds works, just in case for some reason you have multiple movement speeds and they're different numbers, like if a wizard casts fly on you. Now we move on to the important stuff, because let's be honest, if you need us to go into detail and explain every aspect of how to take part in an encounter, I'm going to direct you to sitting down with a play group.
Yeah.
Rather than listening to a podcast tell you how to be an encounter. This is best done as a hands-on experience where the DM can be like, okay, this is how we do this.
Yeah. What we've talked about has mostly been kind of like a little refresher, clarifying some of the rule stuff. If it's something that you genuinely don't quite understand the concept of, 1, grab your handbook, and 2, you may not be ready to run an encounter yet.
Yeah. If you can't be a character in an encounter, you probably shouldn't run one.
Which is not to discourage people from DMing.
Yes.
Of course, from time to time, there will be playgroups that sprout up where nobody has played the game.
Yes.
And, read your book.
Read your book. That is going to be a case in which the person who is willing to read and understand the book the best is gonna have to be the one to DM.
Yeah.
Unless you just want to do playground fantasy. The rules are made up on the fly and the points don't matter. Okay, so now we're on to the meat and potatoes and probably what the listener was actually asking. How to run an encounter as a DM.
Yes.
So, first and foremost, read your monster stat block.
Yeah.
If you are picking monsters, read their stat block. Seriously, I'm being dead serious. Read them. Know what your monsters can do and know who and what they're after.
Yes. Hand me the monster manual.
Here is the monster manual.
In this book, you will find your monster stat blocks, most likely.
Yes.
Not all of them are in there, but most of them are.
Yes.
When you open to one, like mains, because that's the only one on the page I have confidence I can pronounce the name of, it's gonna give you its armor class, its hit points, its speed, its stats, everything that you need to know about the monster. And some of them, this page in particular is not a great example, but like this one with the piercer, it has a couple paragraphs to tell you about, like, you know,
what it wants, what its environment is, how it goes about what it does.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you're wondering about all those numbers at the top, at the front of the monster manual, they go through in great detail and they're like, okay, so speed, this is exactly what speed is. The different kinds of speed, it's different saving throws, it's different skills. This is what all of this means. So the front of the monster manual gives you step-by-step details onto reading and understanding a monster stat block.
Yeah, it breaks down size categories. It even breaks down the types of monsters.
Explaining what a monster is, where they dwell, how to use the book, and different locations that they might be in.
Alignment, which in 5e isn't super important, but it can be.
They've started to move away from alignment being as strongly set, but most sentient creatures have atypically with their alignment now.
It explains the challenge rating. It doesn't make balance encounters easier, but we will get to that.
Yes, that is an entire thing. We'll talk about balancing encounters.
Yeah. Read through it. I think even just reading through this can definitely help your understanding of combat in general.
So the books, I know, books, but hear me out. The books for Dungeons & Dragons are designed so that you can read them and know how to play Dungeons & Dragons. There are two ways to learn how to play Dungeons & Dragons. One is by playing Dungeons & Dragons. The other is by reading the books.
Now listen, on this podcast, we have very strong feelings about reading.
Yes.
We don't encourage it. In fact, we actively discourage it. No one on this podcast reads.
Yeah.
However, we have to make one exception. That is the rule books for the system you're running.
Yes.
There is no way around it. Trust me, we've looked. We have looked. Audiobooks are on thin ice, and even those are not super helpful when you're running a game.
Yes.
So in this one, this is a free pass, if you will, to read your rule book. No other books, but your rule book.
But read your monster stat blocks, know what they do, know what they're after, know who they're after. Now, this is a name I have said multiple times on this podcast. It is Keith Amon and his The Monsters Know What They're Doing series. Go back and listen to previous episodes. I have sung his praises before. He goes through, breaks down the stat blocks, look at ability curves, looks at abilities, determines what the monsters want, where they want it, how they'll go about it, when they'll run away. But if you're not going that deep, you don't need to follow his advice. But there are a few fundamentals that I think you should know, which is the monsters know their own strengths. They know what they're good at. They know what they're not good at. Even wild animals know what kind of hunting they're good at and what kind of hunting they're not good at, just on an instinctual level. Monsters know their own abilities. A monster isn't going to be like, I wish I had some sort of psionic blast to deal with these intruders. And then after the fight be like, oh damn it, I forgot I had a psionic blast that could have dealt with these intruders.
I don't know, it could just be a really forgetful mind flayer.
I mean, in that case, that's funny.
That's an NPC.
That's funny.
If anything.
But monsters know their own abilities. They will know, this is my ability, this can deal with this group of people. Vast majority of creatures don't want to die. Let's just establish that flat out. Most creatures don't want to die and will try to flee or try to survive in any way possible because they don't want to die.
Yes. And it can feel really bad to make your monsters run away, right?
Yeah.
Because in some ways, you want your group to kill the monster. You want them to have this victory. It's going to be so cool when they do it, but it doesn't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
Any more than your party wants to die.
Yes. And that can lead to an interesting situation, like if your party's going through a dungeon and they get into a fight and one of the goblins successfully flees from them, later encounters might be complicated by the fact that now the dungeon's aware that these people are here and they're going to kill. And the last thing is monsters will only fight if their goals are challenged or their possessions are in danger. The vast majority of monsters. There are demons who are chaotic evil and will fight just because they want to fight.
Or they're possessed by another being.
In which case, being possessed by another being, that other being's goals are being challenged by the party's continued existence.
Yes.
So, if their goals are challenged or their possessions are in danger, their goals include living and or not being grievously harmed. And their possessions might include their life, or their well-being.
Or their power.
Or their power.
Or their dragon horde.
Or their dragon horde. So...
Or that really cool rock they found.
Now, an important one to note is territory, right? If you're in a thing's territory, it might attack you. So...
Like Puma territory.
Puma territory. Keep that in mind, but if you encounter an orc, and the orc's goals and possessions aren't being challenged by the party, there's no reason for the orc to attack them, and you might, have fun doing a parlay.
There can be one other time in which something may attack, but it's not because its goals are challenged or its possessions are in danger.
Yeah.
It is hungry.
Its goal of not dying is being challenged by it not finding any food.
But it's not being challenged by the party.
No. So sometimes the party is just collateral damage.
Yes.
So in the case of the creature is hungry, its goal of survival is challenged. The party is something that if it kills the party, its goal will no longer be challenged. So in that case, you can parlay or have a peaceful encounter. Keep track of HP. For two reasons. One, if your monsters are losing very quickly, you can add more monsters to future encounters or higher health monsters. This helps you keep track of the damage output your party can do and balance.
Yeah, I will say, I know we're about to get into balancing and different tools that can help. The best way to balance your encounters is to have encounters with your party, right?
Yes.
You throw something at them, you'll see how well they can handle it and adjust from there.
Yep. Speaking of balancing, we're going to pivot into that. Balance your encounters, and I put quotation marks around balance. So, there are three main tools, which the first two are basically identical. The second one's just a non-official Wizards thing, which is D&D Beyond Encounter Builder and Kobold Fight Club. Let me see if Kobold Fight Club is still around.
I think so.
It went down for a while.
Oh.
So now it's Kobold Plus.
Well, you can Google Kobold Fight Club and it'll come up.
The first rule of Kobold Fight Club is yip.
Hell yeah.
And that can help generate encounters for you. So, Kobold Fight Club / the D&D Beyond Encounter Builder will give you ideas of how to balance an encounter according to the rules in the DMG. Xanathar's Guide to Everything also has quick matchup tables, which is how many people are in your party, what CR creature do you want, this is how many creatures you need for a medium encounter. How many creatures of that CR. The thing with CR and encounter difficulty is that, honestly, it's a little bit bogus. Because your party composition, the balancing of encounters does not ask for party composition, it only asks for number of characters in your party.
Yes.
If you have extremely well-built, highly tactical players, a medium encounter is going to be baby's first goblin encounter to that group. Versus if you have a bunch of baby's first players and you throw them against an easy encounter, there's a chance they get steamrolled.
Yeah.
So, encounters will never go how they should. Easy encounters can kill. Deadly encounters can be wiped easily. The guide for building encounters gives you a baseline, and then it will be your knowledge of your party's combat ability that allow you to go from there.
Yeah. And if a combat is going south and you're like, I don't want a total party kill here, you can come up for a reason. For something else happens and it distracts the whatever it is.
Yeah.
The monsters that are being controlled by someone else, there's suddenly a different threat that their leader guy needs them to go after.
I'm tossing this little idea out to the universe. Your party is losing an encounter. Something comes up that rescues them, but it's a bigger problem they'll have to deal with later. Like if your party...
a goose.
Possibly. I'm thinking like they're fighting something and then like a purple worm tears through and like the things they're fighting scatter.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, there's a purple worm in this area. We are in a worse situation, but we are safe from this specific encounter. It's like the one thing you always talk about when playing Savage Worlds, I think you were playing, or...
Oh, yeah. So Savage Worlds... Lovely system.
Yeah.
They have these special cards that are dealt out at the beginning of each session that basically give the player a special little ability that they don't even have to tell the DM about, right?
Uh-huh.
I was playing a session of this once. We were kind of all surrounded by guards about to go to jail. I didn't want to go to jail. I didn't want to go to the dungeon.
Yeah.
So I threw my card down, which said, your party gets out of the situation they are currently in with a worse but are put in a worse situation. Something to that effect.
Yeah.
They no longer have to fight their fight they're currently fighting, but something worse has happened.
Yes.
It did make that dungeon master have to rewrite the entire... He was like, I have to take a 15-minute break to rewrite how the rest of the session goes now. But, you know.
Yeah, it's along those ideas. You as the DM can pull a lot of tricks behind the screen because the party doesn't know that you're making it up.
Yeah.
A quick note about balancing, action economy.
Yes.
A group of enemies is going to be tougher than a single big enemy in most cases. Because the side that does more is the side that wins.
Yeah.
So if you have a bunch of enemies of low CR and one enemy of high CR, if that one enemy is not a legendary enemy, your party's going to steamroll the big enemy and possibly get steamrolled by the group. Because this group is doing more stuff. Now that is where legendary actions and layer actions come into play. Because that is how you balance your one big enemy. You give them legendary actions and layer actions. You'll notice that on some creatures. What those mean are that sometimes, and read through your monster manual to understand how these work, but at certain points, your big evil guy can be like, nice turn you just took. I'm going to do something right now. It's not my turn, but I'm doing this. Okay, continue. So that helps balance out the action economy. Action economy is vital, which is also why summoner builds are almost always broken.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, like, we've been playing some Baldur's Gate 3. Let me tell you, if you get a good summoners build going, cracked.
Yeah.
Because you have more people on your side than the enemies have. And if you are deciding you want to run a bunch of enemies, use the mob rules. This is something that a lot of DMs, I feel, don't know about, and it needs to be better known. We will be opening up our textbooks to page 250.
The Dungeon Master's Guide.
Page 250 has handling mobs. Specifically, what it tells you is if your monsters need to roll, like, let's say, a 13 to hit, that means every 3 monsters that attack that player, 1 hits. And that's it. You don't roll for your mob. You're just like, okay, 21 of these are attacking you. They need a 14 to hit, so 7 of them hit. And that's it.
It's much cleaner than rolling a d20 20 times.
Exactly. So you avoid all that rolling. You cut it down. Turns become deterministic from the enemy's side this way, but that's a lot more pleasant for your players than... I'm almost there, guys.
It also kind of helps with
3 of those hits.
The worst part of combat. waiting for your turn.
Waiting for your turn. If you can speed up combat, always a good thing to do.
Yes. Always, like, I know as a dungeon master, you're already, like, kind of, like, juggling a lot of information. If you can at least also juggle some of the basic stuff that your party can do, that can also help speed up combat, especially if you have new players who are like, well, I really don't know what to do. Offer them suggestions.
Mm-hmm. Offer them suggestions. Try to know your players' abilities. That'll be helpful for them.
Yeah.
And then I do want to note there's also on the previous page, adjudicating areas of effect, which just tells you essentially how many enemies in AoE hits if you just have like a horde of enemies. So you can know that your lightning bolt on average will hit 4 enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a line. It'll hit roughly 4 enemies. Maybe if they're tightly packed, you add, it says like use a D4 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you might hit up to like 8 enemies with the lightning bolt. If they're, grouped together sort of thing. So you can just AoE target amounts. This is helpful if you aren't using a battle mat, which if you have a huge horde, your battle mat probably doesn't work for it.
Yes.
If you're doing like the big battlefield fight sort of thing. Like fog of war, huge battlefield sort of thing. So there's one last important thing that you as a DM running an encounter must do. This
Very
one, not
important,
optional.
Man.
If this isn't happening,
Stop playing.
Stop playing, put it away, you're done for the night.
You need to figure out something else.
And that is, have fun. If your players want to be challenged, challenge them. If they want easy, give them easy encounters. Make the encounters fun for you as the DM. Give yourself interesting things to do that your party might react to in interesting ways. Unique or race-skinned creatures can engage players that are used to all the tricks. Like, I'm fucking walking encyclopedia sometimes. But a unique monster with a unique ability or a reskinned monster that I don't recognize can very much catch my attention. And circling back, a lot of players expect, oh, we're just gonna fight this thing till it dies. Have your enemies surrender or offer to parlay.
Also, sometimes make your enemies too challenging for your party.
Make your enemies really tough and make sure it's clear. Like, give your party a clear, this is how you can run away from this scenario.
Yeah. Remind your party it's okay to be a coward and run away.
Yeah. Keep things interesting. Make sure you are having fun and your party is having fun. I know, we've said this before. We say this almost every episode, but if you're not having fun, if your group isn't having fun, don't play.
Something needs to change if you're not having fun.
Something needs to change. No D&D is better than bad D&D, and by that I mean that not playing D&D is preferential to playing D&D that you don't enjoy.
Not that bad D&D is preferential to never playing D&D.
Not that there is no type of D&D that surpasses bad D&D. Implying that bad D&D is the best D&D. So we can move on to Mox's Master Minute. The Jorns!
We're going to talk about Jorns.
That's how I pronounce it.
Because there was an eyeball on the page, guys. I'll be honest with you. It's the only monster in X.
Yep. They're beings from the elemental plane of Earth. They can just travel through dirt. They have the Earthglide ability, which means that when they use their burrow speed, they don't actually, dig. They just, move through. They can sense nearby gems.
And gold.
And they just open their maw and just hump, 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 hump. And they have, 4 arms at the top of their head, I guess, to shovel gems and gold into their gaping maw. And
And right in this book, it tells you some important things about them.
Yeah.
That you might need to know for running a Jorn.
Yeah.
Like how it craves gold and gemstones and precious materials, such to the point where, it will ignore other creatures for that.
Mm-hmm.
However, if your party is carrying that, your party's collateral damage at that point.
Yes. So at that point, your party is getting in the way of the Zorn's goal of getting its hands on as many precious gems and gold as it can. Your party's in the way of that.
It also notes here, so these guys, they have an 11 intelligence, they can talk. It will start out by trying to convince them to give up their gold.
It will try to parlay.
Yes. And if it's hungry, if it's starving, if it's being told no, then it might resort to violence.
Yes.
But it's not just gonna outright start punching your adventurers.
Yes, which it can do.
Yeah.
So, this is a good example of a very interesting monster once you read the description. I know some people will see the stat block and be like, okay, that's all there is. This is all just flavor. It doesn't matter. But the flavor is there to give you an idea on how to run the creature.
And I'm gonna say something that I don't normally say.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of great online resources to pull up your stat blocks for things. A lot of those online resources just have the stat block.
Yep.
They don't have any of the flavor tags. And it's honestly kind of important for running your monsters.
Yeah.
So just instead of trying to look for resources that just give you the stat block, just pirate the monster manual.
Yar!
I'm not going to tell you to buy it. It's like, what, a $50 book?
I believe the full set is like $50. But I can't remember how much the starter set is.
I think the starter set's like $150 because I'm pretty sure they're like $50 a book.
In which case, they're like $50. Actually,
And I'm not going to tell you to spend $50 on a book if you can just get it for free online.
Oh, yeah, okay.
150?
170.
Oh, delightful.
$170 MSRP on that baby.
Yeah, so I'm not going to tell you to spend $170. God knows I'm not going to go spend $170.
No.
I would never own these books if it wasn't for the fact that you have them.
That's me.
Because I will just find it for free online.
Yeah. But the text is important. It gives you at least an idea on how to run the creature. And honestly, just read your books. And play Dungeons & Dragons. Best way to learn, hands-on. If you are in that situation where you all want to play, but none of you know how, listen to some actual play podcasts and read your books. Hate to break your heart, but that's what needs to be done.
And by read your books, we only mean
the D&D rule books.
Yes.
Don't go and read A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin.
In fact, there's a lovely little appendix in the back of your books that you need to fucking ignore, because it's going to tell you books to go read. Don't read. Reading's bad for you.
I know I have. I should have A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin on here. Somewhere on my shelf. Quiz my quiz is coming on. Come at last. Ah, here it is. Ursula K. Le Guin, The Tombs of Atuan, which is actually the second book in the Wizard of Earthsea series.
Which we only have for decoration.
Yep.
Sorry, I try to find things that are at least somewhat relevant, you know?
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's easier than others.
Ah, there we go. There's the first one, A Wizard of Earthsea.
Also, just for decoration.
I have 1 and 2. I don't think I have the third one, though. No, but I do have To Kill a Mockingbird, which I stole from my English teacher in, sophomore year of high school.
To have as decoration.
Because I think, if I remember correctly, we, had to read this in class, but then, I wanted to annotate it, and then I never did any annotation while reading it. For school. I would never read books for pleasure. That's a crime. Alright, this book. Let me get back to reading this book. So,
He was lying about that.
I would hardly call this a book. It just has fun facts.
Reading's reading, man. I don't want to have to kick you off this podcast.
Okay.
Because if I kick you off, then I have to find a new co-host, and the only co-host available is going to be one of our Displacer Beasts. Because I know for a fact they don't read. 2nd edition, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, was the last edition to date to support an advanced version. True or false?
I'm gonna go with true.
That's correct.
Nice.
In Baldur's Gate.
No way! 3?
1.
Oh, okay.
In the Baldur's Gate computer game.
Yes.
The original. What is the error message if you try to exit an area before the whole party reaches the edge of the map?
Don't split the party.
No.
Damn.
You must gather your party before venturing forth.
I should have known that. That is, like, it's in nerd culture. It floats around every once in a while in nerd culture. You must gather your party before venturing forth.
What spell allows you to link hands in a circle with willing allies and be transported to another plane of existence?
Oh, okay. So, that's not going to be teleportation. That's going to be plane shift.
It's actually going to be a big, colorful parachute they give you in kindergarten. Yeah. Yeah, plane shift.
Yeah.
What type?
Launch those balls as high as you can. Anyways.
What type of monster enslaved the Grey Dwarves in the Underdark for generations?
Ah, that's illithids.
You want to be more specific?
Mind players?
Yeah.
That's just...
I know.
It's not more specific, it's just using a different word.
Yeah.
They also enslaved the Darrow. The Darrow, though, like, escaped later and have been driven mad.
Mm.
The Dwergar, also known as Grey Dwarves, are, sure, they're assholes, but they're not, they haven't been driven mad. They have some residual psionic malaise, but...
I can't talk about the rest of it.
Yep.
But in case you were wondering, in Baldur's Gate 3, when you get into the Underdark, and, like, your Mind Flayer tadpole connects with those Grey Dwarves, they don't go out their way to explain, yeah, these guys were enslaved by illithids and have residual psionic malaise.
Yeah.
They don't go out of their way to explain that. That's why.
Yeah. So, if you're wondering why you have a slight psionic connection with the Grey Dwarves as you go around, it's because they're kind of like Gith, right?
Yeah.
They were enslaved by the Mind Flayers for a long time. The thing is, Gith were enslaved by the Mind Flayers back when it was the Grand Illithid Empire, and then eventually the Illithid Empire fell apart, and then they tried to enslave Grey Dwarves for a while, then they tried to enslave Darrow for a while, and now you have, like, what are they? They start with a QU, but they're not quasits. They're, it's not important. Quenots. There you go. Quenots and homunculi. Not homunculi. There's a human race that is, like, taken over by Mind Flayers, and now they're, like, brutish and kind of blind. They're, like, twins or something weird. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate every one of you. If you want to support us, honestly, the best way you can support us right now is liking, sharing, favoriting, rating us highly.
Asking us questions,
interacting with our media in any way, whether it's our social media or our podcast, basically helping get the word out there. Podcasts tend to spread through word of mouth better than anything else. So if you like this podcast, talk to other people about it, try to get the listenership up. We appreciate that more than anything else. If you want the cold open, cold outro, all the sidebars and diatribes, you can support us by going to patreon.com/thetavernkeepsguide. If you want to find us on any of the social medias, I'm just wondering why you're...
Just having a good time, man.
Okay. If you want to find us on any of our social medias, it's The Tavern Keeps Guide. That's going to be Patreon, it's going to be TikTok, it's going to be Tumblr, it's going to be Twitter, I refuse to call it the other name. It's going to be Mastodon, Dice.camp instance. It very well may soon be Blue Sky, which is another bird nest variant. We have a Discord if you want to join that. I'll be honest, not terribly active, but that's because low member count right now. Maybe at one point I'll start doing weekly 3CB tournaments if you're a Magic the Gathering nerd and know about 3-card blind.
You'll never beat my deck.
You'll never beat, except you might. You'll never
beat my deck.
Yep, it's a perfect deck. Anyways.
Perfect deck, no notes.
I appreciate every one of you for listening. It warms my heart. It warms my soul. And, if you like it, share it, let it be known. And as always, thank you, and make sure to tip the barmaids.